Thank you for joining The Ones Changing the World, India's first Future Tech Meets Sustainability podcast. Today, I'm delighted and honored to have with me Mr. Shailesh Chandra, who's the Managing Director for Tata Motors Passengers Vehicles Limited and Tata Passengers Electric Mobility Limited. So, Mr. Chandra, really appreciate you taking time being part of a humble effort. We try and raise awareness and bring leaders such as yourself and talk about how technology is impacting businesses and consumers. So why don't we start with climate? Because I personally believe that it's one of the largest existential threat here in India and I think for globally also. So a report by IQ Air's World Air Quality Report suggested that out of the 50 most polluted cities in the world, it had 35 Indian cities on the list. And then obviously there are other reports which claims different numbers. Then there is Ghaziabad, which has the unwanted honor of being the second most polluted city in the world. And then there's Delhi, which has been ranked the world's most polluted capital city in the world. Then there's another report which suggests that India's pollution-related death was the highest globally. So obviously, climate crisis has become one of the largest existential threat for India. So do you think this clean energy transition or us moving from these ICE vehicles to electric vehicles, solar vehicles could possibly help mitigate this large problem?
Thanks for having me on the show. I think your question is very pertinent. Climate change is an issue that the entire world is facing, and this is going to lead to a lot of volatile climatic conditions, and therefore there have been commitments given by different countries in terms of net carbon zero emission targets. And India has also, signed to the COP26 commitments. And therefore, the role of road transportation sector, which is, the third largest emitter of CO2, there's a big role that the transport sector has to play. And therefore, electrifying the transportation sector is an imperative. And specifically for India, if you really see, there's an added issue of pollution, where 14 out of 15 most polluted cities in the world is in India. And on top of that, we know that 75% of our fossil fuel is imported. And therefore, if you take into consideration all these three aspects, EVs become an imperative, and therefore, as far as the next decade is concerned, there's a need and there's a necessity to make the transportation sector move towards electrification.
So thank you, Mr. Chandra. So in sticking with the sustainability space, there are different nations who are approaching a model what works best for them. There are nations who are working on improving public transit and better prioritizing the needs of pedestrians and cyclists. And the approach is towards a shared mobility perspective. And there are reports which claims that the Gen Z really cares about sustainability. They're keen to get away from the mindless consumption to a conservation model. And they are also moving away from the ownership model to a rental model, towards the shared mobility, towards the mobility as a service in space. So how is Gen Z specifically impacting the mobility industry?
So, the new generation customers, who are now the majority of the customers of cars in India, at least, we are seeing that the median age has been coming down, and therefore the choices are slightly different. There was a trend towards shift towards shared mobility by these millennials, but we have also seen specifically in India that people, while using shared mobility for a normal commuting between home to office, do also keep a personal car for their freedom, for moving in privacy with their families, for going with excursion trip with their friends and families. So there's a trend that one is seeing is for different purpose. people are using a shared mobility or a personal mobility. And therefore, both I expect are going to grow in India. The new gen customers are uh, very confident. They want cars to be expressing their personality. So they are very particular about the design, the in-cabin experience, the quality of the car's performance, and are ready to pay for features. I think these are some of the changes that we are seeing. But I would say that uh, while the Gen Z is also very smart in terms of moving to shared mobility for certain needs, certain transportation need of theirs, but they are also very involved in their interaction with a car and expressing their personality in the cars that they are going to use. So it's a very mixed kind of trend that we have been seeing between shared mobility and personal mobility.
What are the policies and ecosystem support which you think could be extended by the government, and which you feel, if extended by the government, will really help the acceleration of the clean energy and electric vehicle transition here in India?
In the past, few years, government has taken, I would say, very firm actions to support the vision that it has laid down for 2030, which is 30% of the vehicles which will be sold by the end of this decade is going to be electric. And there are several steps that the government has already taken in terms of the FAME 2 incentive policy, which is an outlay of nearly 10,000 crore rupees focused on giving demand incentives for all categories of vehicles, supporting the charging infrastructure and also the R&D. So, it's a very, very comprehensive policy that the government has come out with. On top of that, the government is also supported through a lower GST rate of 5% as compared to generally you see the cars are taxed anywhere between 28% to 50%. So this is a big support. Also, many states have come with waiver on road tax registration, and they have come with also demand incentives on top of the FAME for even the private segment. So there are multiple initiatives that the government has taken. On top of that, they are also supporting localization through the PLI scheme, whether it is the PLI Auto or for advanced chemistry cells. So all these initiatives are really giving the right signal in the market, but more importantly, encouraging and motivating the customers as well as different ecosystem players to invest in electrification.
When you talk about EV adoption, people say that the range anxiety is there and the charging infrastructure is not there. So, what, according to you, are the top challenges or the barriers for electric vehicle adoption here in India, and how do you think that they could be overcome?
See, there were multiple challenges and barriers, and I would say some of them were real, some of them were, more a mental barrier, I would say. Let's take, for example, the price, charging infra, range anxiety, lack of choices. These were the top four challenges and barrier. And there has been very positive movement in terms of overcoming these barriers in the last 3-4 years. The prices have been in the range of 25 to 30% premium over the conventional vehicles, which used to be earlier 2.5 times more. And therefore, it made the electric vehicles completely unaffordable and people did not consider them well. So that has been taken care of by launch of products like Nexon EV and some of the governmental incentive support that is being provided, as I mentioned in my earlier response. So that has taken care of that price bit a lot, but it still remains to a great extent. Then you have the issue of charging infra. People are fast realizing that they can charge their car from their home charging solution, and there's less requirement of public charging infra when they are running within the cities. But as far as highway is concerned, when highway running is concerned, there is a need for charging infra, and this is something which is expanding very fast. And this is what we have seen in the last 2 to 3 years. Choices are still less, but I would say there are very promising choices with products like Nexon EV, Tigor EV, and recently we launched the higher range Nexon EV also, which is Nexon EV Max. So there are certain barriers which have been taken care of. more choices need to come. That would be, one of the challenges which the customers would have. They would like to see more options. It has to come at different price points with different body styles. So they would like to have plethora of choices, which is still over a period of time. We expect that when many other manufacturers also come in, when Tata Motors comes with its declared 10 products in the next 5 years, I think this issue will also be taken care of. And as far as range anxiety is concerned, you recently saw that we launched the Nexon EV Max. So there is an attempt by OEMs like us to keep enhancing the range as the battery prices are coming down. So, or I would say that a lot of barriers which were there, stopping the adoption of electric vehicles, a lot of them have been taken care of. But I would say still charging infra is in a very nascent stage of its development. But in 2 to 3 years, we'll see accelerated expansion. More choices need to be there for customers, and these are also, this is also going to come in the coming years. So top two challenges which still remain, I would say charging infra and lack of sufficient choices.
So how do we communicate the benefits of electric vehicle and a clean energy transition to the consumers? And what does the overall market research and consumer feedback sentiment kind of suggest regarding electric vehicle adoption here in India?
Yeah, I think we'll have to really take a multi-pronged approach as far as awareness creation is concerned to communicate the benefits. One is that we have been running a lot of myth-busting campaigns to really overcome the misconceptions around EVs, and we did a Manali to Leh kind of a trip just to showcase that EVs can perform, on very treacherous conditions also. It can be charged, using a simple 15 ampere plug point, even if there is no charging infra available. So those kind of campaigns really help. We also do range rallies, for example, to give assurance to the customers that range anxiety is too much overstated and they can feel comfortable. So that's the other kind of events that we do, and continuous campaigns, in terms of making people understand, uh, uh, and overcome certain misconceptions that they would have on EVs. The one very big, what to say, very impactful initiative would be to really drive the word of mouth through social media. And good thing is that the early adopters of electric vehicles are very expressive and they like sharing their stories. And this is what we have been seeing, that all the 35,000 people who have bought EVs have been posting their experience on the social media and talking about how they have been able to overcome the challenges that would be in the mind of prospective customers. So those kind of videos are really helping in giving greater confidence to the consumers. So this is another big initiative I would say that really helps. And we need to continuously let the experts also create videos and talk about the benefit in terms of total cost of ownership benefit. There are people within 2 years who have saved a lot in terms of the premium that they would have paid for electric vehicle has been completely offset with the running cost benefit that they have accumulated. So I think combination of all these initiatives really help in letting people know the benefits of electric vehicles and overcoming the myths and misconceptions that are there. Um, Regarding, the adoption of EVs and what the research is saying, I think we collect a lot of data through telematics and also continuously do research in terms of how the adoption is propagating and how it is penetrating. What is coming out is that there is growing confidence now in the EV, because when we started our journey 3-4 years back, adoption of a new technology was the biggest barrier, and the customers had to really cross that hump. And with 35,000 vehicles on the road now, and all these early adopters talking about their experiences to the people who are inquiring about electric vehicles, also posting on the social media, as I said, has really helped us in making EVs now mainstream. And the very fact that Just 1 year back, the people who used to buy EVs, as per our data, only 35% of them were buying it for primary use. Today, nearly 80% of them are using EVs as a primary car, or the first car. So clearly shows that it is now a mainstream choice. We are also seeing that the public charging is not a big concern, because 95% of all these buyers are actually using home charging most of the time. So this is also getting confirmed that while charging infra is definitely required, but it is more required on highways and less required within the cities. And 95% of the time people will use the home charging solution which is being provided when the cars are being sold. Also, one more information is what is very evident is that uh, majority of the customers who are buying electric cars now are primarily people who are doing more than 50 kilometers every day. So, which means that people who have high running are more inclined to buy EVs. This is the other data point that we are, seeing, and also very encouraged to see that nearly 85% of the people who have bought the electric cars are generally taking them on highways also, which is a bit counterintuitive, given that we always think that for intercity electric vehicles would not be used. People are mostly using within the city, but the data says otherwise. So these have been, some of the insights that we have gathered through research and, whatever is available over telematics.
Right, right. So what can we expect from Tata Motors in the near term, and what are the future mobility solutionings that Tata Motors is working on?
We have taken the approach of, three generations of electric vehicles. The first generation was about conversion electric vehicles. This was more converting the existing products into electric by taking out the conventional powertrain and packaging the electric powertrain in that, but it had limitations related to range. So generation two was about adapting and modifying the existing conventional architectures to make them more electric ready so that it can deliver more range and can give more features as far as what is expected in an electric vehicle. And the third generation would be the pure EVs. And recently we had unveiled the Avinya, which is a pure EV. And the idea here is that this will be a grounds up architecture made only to deliver an electric vehicle. And this really helps us uh, fully exploit the benefits of pure EV, which has absolutely no need for uh, compromising on the architecture and efficiency of what an electric vehicle can do, because of having no pressure of also accommodating a conventional powertrain. So this is something which will be coming in future, which will be a very futuristic electric vehicle with a very novel concept. On the same footprint of the vehicle, we will be giving more space in the cabin, and the whole in-cabin experience will be to the next different level. So it is very experience-focused concept, and this is what is going to come by 2025, is what we have said.
Right. Yeah. So yes, I saw the Avinya concept EV, and I was completely blown by the concept EV, and I truly felt that, oh, here we have a world standard product from Indian company. So would you like to talk a little bit more about the Avinya, the concept EV, elaborate a little bit more on it, and when do you think it'll be available to the market?
So Avinya is a generation 3 concept, which is a pure EV. And a pure EV is basically uh, allows us to not only create a perfect orthogonal space for accommodating batteries, which helps you deliver higher range, but we have also taken the benefit of a pure EV to create absolutely a novel styling, which not only gives absolutely a new body style, which will have the agility of a hatch, spaciousness of an MPV, and characteristics and versatility of an SUV. That is the concept of a Vinya. The in-cabin experience is going to be very immersive, I would say, and it will be very techy, but technology being non-intrusive is the concept that we are trying to drive. And this is a product which is going to be greater than 500-kilometer range. So this is a product that we want to bring in 2025.
Thank you, sir. So at the COP26 summit, Indian government has put a 2070 roadmap for zero emission. What are your views on that? And what is Tata Motors' vision to get to, or roadmap to get to zero emission?
So government has committed for 2070 as the timeline for net carbon zero, and we have been working for past few months on this in terms of defining our net zero emission timelines and target. And this is something which we have still not announced publicly, but in very near future we are going to do that. Hopefully in the next few months. So I would at this stage would not like to explicitly state, but we have done a lot of work and thinking on this, and we aggressive timelines to really commit to a net carbon zero status for ourselves.
Right. So we're seeing some fantastic innovation here in India. So there are some startups who are doing some really crazy things, right from the battery tech to clean energy, for the infrastructure, to electric vehicles, electric scooters, electric three-wheelers. And there are companies who are also working on autonomous vehicles, and they're going brave and way out and trying to solve the level 5 autonomous level problem. And in Chennai, from the IIT Madras, there's a startup which is also working on eVTOLs. So what's the Tata Motors stance? Are you looking at collaborating, partnering with these startups, researchers, academia, to with a vision to accelerate R&D in the mobility here in India?
We have been in constant touch with multiple startups and also major engineering institutes. We are working with IITs for certain efficiency improvements. We have been working with startups in multiple space, who work on algorithms to make our systems more efficient, whether battery management system, primarily that's the focus. And also we are working on certain startups who are working on breakthrough battery technologies, and also there's a lot of collaborative work that we are doing as this space is in its early stage of technology development, and a lot of breakthroughs are possible. So we keep ourselves in close touch with multiple startups. Of course, beyond with the academia and with the other training institutes, we are also partnering to upskill our workforce also in this area. We are also working on skill development to prepare the workforce for the future. So all these initiatives are on, and we'll continue to work with them.
So the future of, thank you, sir. The future of mobility looks super awesome, and electric vehicles, and then there'll be solar vehicles, and people are also working on autonomous vehicles. Then, like you spoke about, there are people, there are startups in India itself, who are working on eVTOLs. Which, according to you, is the future of mobility, and why?
I would say that all of these would come at different times. I would say all of them will definitely see the light of the day. Let's take, for example, autonomous vehicle and electric vehicles are not decoupled, or connected cars are not decoupled topics. They'll happen and converge together in the same vehicle. So these are going to gain maturity, and more of these features will become a norm going forward. I would not have I would not speculate too much at this stage on the eVTOL, but definitely there's a lot of companies which are working on that kind of a concept, but would become a reality after a certain stage. There are certain concerns and all which will be overcome over a period of time. So most of them will become real, but at different points in time, I would say.
Thank you, sir. Really, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. Yes, the future of mobility looks super, super awesome. I believe that there needs to be a more collaborative approach rather than the siloed approach, because so far I think most of the companies, they work in a very siloed approach. But the future where we're going is very decentralized, and we can leverage these great startups, great entrepreneurs, academia, who are researching and accelerating, creating solutions in the field of the future of mobility. And I'm sure Tata Motors is at the forefront of driving that conversation. So wish you the very best. Looking forward for Avanya, and thank you for taking time and being part of the podcast. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, then please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye bye. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate this.